This week's episode of the Rural Woman Podcast is brought to you by the patrons of the Rural Woman Podcast. This amazing group of individuals contribute financially to the Rural Woman Podcast to ensure the stories of women in agriculture hit your earbuds each and every week. Want to join them in supporting the stories of women in agriculture while getting access to extended episodes, patron-only episodes, and other great perks? Head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more about how you can become a patron through Patreon. Hi, I'm Caitlin Dubin, and this is the Rural Woman Podcast. I'm a first-generation farmer who married into agriculture. Born and raised in a city, I was so unfamiliar with where my food came from, but I was determined to figure it out. Through my journey into agriculture, I saw women who were strong but humble, often taking a back seat. To me, these women were leaders who deserved a seat at the table. I created the Rural Woman Podcast to share the voices of women in an industry whose stories often went untold. The rural entrepreneurs who live and breathe their work, full of grit and pride. We come here to share our stories, to be in community with each other, to be challenged and inspired, but most importantly, to be celebrated and to be heard. We may not all live, farm, ranch, or homestead the same, but we are all connected. We are rural women, and our stories are worthy of being told. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Rural Woman Podcast. Today you'll meet Geena Luckett. Geena is the co-owner and general manager of Luckett Vineyards. Over the past decade, she has overseen the continued growth of the family-run Annapolis Valley winery while maintaining the Luckett-brand commitment to customer service and quality. With vast experience in the wine and tourism industry in Nova Scotia and even in New Zealand, Geena has done it all. From crushing grapes to planning epic events to managing the ever-growing team, Geena has made it her business to know the Nova Scotia viticulture scene from the terroir up. I am so excited for you to get to meet my friend Geena Luckett. I had the pleasure of touring with Geena on the most recent season of the FCC Young Farmer Summit Tour, and we just had the best time getting to know each other and traveling the big country of Canada with one another. So I'm excited to share her story with you and for you to get to know Geena and Luckett Vineyards a bit more. And if you are wondering how we can meet in person or if I'm coming to an event near you, you can head on over to wildrosefarmer.com or head to the link in the show notes. And we are going to have a list of all of the upcoming events that I will be at and see if I'll be in your neighborhood so we can meet IRL. Without further ado, my friends, let's get to this week's episode with Geena. Geena, welcome to the Rural Woman Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing super well. I'm really excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
I am so excited to share your story with my friends here on the Rural Woman Podcast. For the backstory, I feel like I'm talking to my girlfriend who I haven't seen in a month.
I know. We went from seeing each other back-to-back weeks for several months, and now it's been too long.
I know, it's been too long. We're catching up here, and I'm so excited to share your story because I think it is really unique and it's very, very inspiring. So before I fangirl too much, Geena, for the folks who are unfamiliar with you, tell us who you are, give us your background, where are you from, and how did you get your start in agriculture?
So I am from Wolfville, Nova Scotia. I was actually born in St. John, New Brunswick, but we moved to Nova Scotia when I was a few years old. And at that time, my dad had some specialty grocery stores called Pete's Boutique. And we lived just outside of Halifax for about 10 years. And during that time, my dad still had the grocery stores. We relocated to Wolfville, which is in the Annapolis Valley in Nova Scotia, about an hour from Halifax. And he started a farm. Him and my mom wanted a little bit of a different lifestyle, get out of the city. And he was growing fruits and vegetables, pretty much everything that you could imagine can be grown in Nova Scotia. He was growing that to sell back to the stores and just wanted a little bit of that rural country lifestyle. And so I grew up on the farm from the age of 12 until I went off to university. And at that time, I did not see agriculture as a career path. I was involved in horses, so I did see the equine side of things as a potential future, but the agricultural, like farming side was not so much on my radar. I went off to Dalhousie University, did my Bachelor of Management there. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, wanted a little bit of just like a general base knowledge, I guess, of kind of business ownership and entrepreneurship. And I had that kind of entrepreneurial drive within me. So I wanted to explore that a little bit. At that time, while I was at Dal, I was working at the grocery stores, and I realized two things really quickly. One was that family business was super challenging. And two was that I did not see a future in the grocery world. I said to my dad after a couple of years that, not to count on me for anything long term, that if I wasn't going to be in it 100%, I didn't really feel like it was fair to him or to myself to kind of stay on that path. And so while I was working at the grocery stores, I had a job offer to start working at a tack shop, which is like an equestrian supply store, which was right up my alley. I quickly abandoned the grocery store ship and moved into that industry and worked there for a couple of years. And during that time, I was still at university. And during that time, my dad actually opened up a winery on our home farm. And I started just helping out on my days off from my other job, odd jobs, working at the farmer's market, helping with some data management, just whatever was kind of needed. And I very quickly learned that this is an industry that I can really get behind. And there was so much excitement around it. There still is. Nova Scotia is really an emerging wine region. So there was so much excitement. I really saw the passion that my dad had, and very quickly I was realizing that I had that similar passion for this industry. And a year after he had opened, the events manager position became available. And I applied just like everyone else and had my interview, and I did eventually get the job. And that was my first foray into the business. And then I just spent the next few years moving my way around the business, spent a harvest with our winemaker, has tried to take it as much as I can from our vineyard manager on really learning the viticulture side of things in our restaurant, in our tasting bar, and sales, kind of doing it all just to really get a grassroots base understanding of what it takes to run that business. And so that was in 2011, we opened the doors. 2011, I started part-time, and then 2012, I took a full-time role, and it's been awesome ever since.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what inspired your dad to go the wine route versus, producing the food off of the farm that he was doing before?
I think at that time there was a lot of talk and action happening around the Annapolis Valley around agritourism and tourism in general. So I think that was a really attractive piece for him. He's also, being the greengrocer and growing the fruits, and he's got that green thumb and that kind of farm to table mentality. Being a huge wine fan himself. And we were I should have mentioned, we were actually growing grapes for another winery before we opened our vineyard. So I think at that time he said, I'm growing the grapes. I love the end product. I love the people aspect of, hosting people, the hospitality side of things. Why am I not just doing the full meal deal myself? And my dad is a big dreamer, a big doer, bigger is better kind of guy. So he's always looking for his next undertaking that he can do. And so I think that it was just a natural progression. He had the space on the farm. We have one of the most iconic and best views in the province. And he just saw the opportunity and couldn't help himself.
I love that. I had the pleasure of seeing all of the beautiful photos that you have shared in your presentations that I've seen before. But for the folks listening, give us an overview of what the farm landscape looks like there, because I'm sure it's a lot different than what we're looking out our windows seeing now.
It's a pretty unique landscape, that's for sure. So where we are in the Annapolis Valley, we are on the South Mountain. Walbrook Mountain is where we are. So we have northern exposure, which is not actually really ideal for grape growing, but it works for the varieties that we have. And we've got such a nice slope and really great drainage and really great soils that it really makes up for that. And so the home estate is about 100 acres. And the vineyard sits on the very top part of our property. So you're looking out onto the Bay of Fundy. And the Bay of Fundy, for anyone who doesn't know, these are the highest tides in the world. So our view and the landscape that you're seeing, it changes every day, whether the tide's in, the tide out is out, what the farm's doing across the way, what color the leaves are. You've got this really vast, beautiful backdrop that people are, sipping their wine, they're out in the restaurant, they're walking through the gardens. It's pretty special. And that proximity to the Bay of Fundy is one of the main reasons why we can grow grapes as well as we do as well, because it acts as a temperature moderating piece. And then we've always got a bit of the breeze and wind flow coming in and out, which, helps to keep the vines dry at certain times of the year and helps create a bit of snow buildup by blowing it around, and which adds protection to the vines as well. So it's a huge benefit, not only visually to our guests and our employees and everyone who gets to enjoy that but also from the agriculture and farming side of things as well.
That is very neat. And it's funny, when we think of wines and when we think of wine country, I don't think of the East Coast, and especially not the East Coast of Canada. But the way that you're describing it and how where you are in the valley is really quite a special thing of how it kind of takes care of the agriculture that's happening there. And no wonder that agritourism is a thing there, because the way that you're describing it, Geena, I'm buying my plane ticket now.
It's worth it. There's so much on offer in Nova Scotia right now, and the craft beverage industry, not just the wines, but the beers and the ciders and the distilled products as well, is really becoming part of what we're really known for. And being this emerging wine region is such a unique opportunity because we are New World. We are exclusive because we are small and we've got, not the big production that you will find in Spain or Argentina or France or these kind of more established regions. So what's coming out of Nova Scotia is truly unique, and it really reflects the really special terroir that we have here. And we're starting to be recognized worldwide for the quality of wines that we have, but also the quality experience that people get when they come here.
So I want to go back to 2011 when you got your job on Luckett Vineyards. You were hired as the events manager. Take us back to those starting days of working in the family business in a higher position than maybe the person who puts the groceries in the bag.
It was interesting because my dad and I are very similar in a lot of ways. And this was a relatively new experience for both of us, because when I was at the grocery store, I wasn't really working under him. He was high level. I was working under different department heads. And any of my other siblings or family that had kind of worked with my dad in the past, I feel like there was always a little bit of separation. So now we were at the beginning a very small business. So our working relationship was a lot more intimate at the beginning. And that took some getting used to, of just kind of creating an environment where I was being treated equally like the other employees, and vice versa. I was treating him like my boss and not my dad. So there was a lot of navigating that right off the bat. But I think we did that pretty well. And the really positive thing for us and what we've maintained to current day is a lot of really honest conversation and trying not to hold anything back. And it's just if I'm feeling some kind of way, or if he's feeling some kind of way, that we express that so that nothing gets to a point where it's building up, because we had seen throughout our experience together in the winery, I have seen anxiety, we'll say, some confusion, some angst amongst the team where where they start to feel they're unsure of who to go to or what the vibe is between us. So I've seen that happen, and it's not nice for myself. It's not nice for my dad. It's not nice for our team members. So it's something that we are really cognizant of and really try and avoid at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like you said, just the dynamic, I think even I feel like when you have so many similarities to people in your family, sometimes that can be a blessing and a curse. Sometimes the similarities that you have maybe aren't some of the best qualities, but trying to find that balance of where your best qualities are and where you need to work on. And for me, it always comes back to the communication piece. As long as you can communicate, the feelings in a productive way, then I think you're ahead of most.
Yeah, that's what we're working on. Well, it's a work in progress.
Always is. Always is. So you started as the events manager. Take us to where you are today.
So started as the events manager, which was a really nice segue into the business because I had nobody working under me. It was just kind of me, myself, and I, which gave me a chance to really start watching and taking in what was happening in the business and just observing different areas while still being able to do my job, but really being able to identify opportunities or challenges or inefficiencies within the company. So I just started kind of keeping track of all that information. As I said, any opportunity that came within the business where we either needed help or needed to fill a gap, I was trying to do that as much as I could to just learn the different areas. So I spent 2 seasons actually as our restaurant manager. I spent a couple seasons as our tasting bar manager. I've spent countless numbers of days in the kitchen and doing the sales. And so I moved my way around to these different positions. And then in 2016, sorry, our business had been growing exponentially kind of year over year. And we didn't really have a super clear strategy in terms of what our management structure was going to look like. And at that time, my dad and I we sat down and we really identified that we need, he wasn't able to take on everything that he had been and for us to continue to grow. So he needed someone who could really step up and take a lot of those responsibilities off his plate. And so we came up with this general manager role, which again, I had to pitch myself for, and I did end up getting that position. And then, it took so much off him so that he was able to do what he does best, which is he's got the gift of the gab. He's got this way with customers and with people that is so entertaining and welcoming and is such a big part of our brand at Luckett Vineyards. But he also was he was still involved with the grocery stores through consulting. He had a very successful public speaking career. He was doing a lot of consulting on the side. It gave him the opportunity to really leverage his skill set, and also gave me the opportunity to really start building myself up within the company and within the industry and start opening my mind to what does this look like long term? Is this it for me? Is this am I here for life? Is this the type of role that I like, I'm good at, I want to do? So yeah, and I'm still general manager today as well as co-owner now, which has been a really exciting journey as well.
Well, absolutely. And, you're mentioning that this opportunity for you to have this position allowed your dad to go off and do the skills that he's good at. I think having this ownership, and as the general manager, Geena, I've heard your story and I've seen the branding and I've seen what you have been able to do. And I think these positions and this involvement has been able to allow you to use your creative talents to grow the brand of Luckett Vineyards to where it is today. And I just see the innovation that you've done, and it's absolutely incredible. And I think we have to give kudos to that because, we talk about your dad being the face of the brand, but you for sure have been able to bring your je ne sais quoi into the brand and be able to grow it to where it is today. So kudos to you for that as well.
Thanks, Caitlin. And that was really important to me at the beginning, is that when I saw the opportunity to join the business, and then when I saw the opportunity to kind of move up within the business, is that there was still, we were young enough that I knew that I was still going to be able to put a little bit of my stamp on it. And that, that I could still integrate myself in a meaningful way.
Hey, small business owners, are you feeling overwhelmed by the countless ways to advertise your brand online? Me too. A powerful tool that you might be overlooking? Pinterest. Did you know that Pinterest is the third largest search engine right behind Google and YouTube? With 500 million people using Pinterest every month, it's a goldmine for small business owners like us. Whether you're looking to drive more traffic to your website, grow your email list, or increase product sales, Pinterest can help you achieve your goals. Shireen from Pinning by Bad Gringa is an experienced Pinterest strategist and an avid woman in agriculture who is passionate about helping small business owners like us unlock the full potential of Pinterest. Pinterest is a visual discovery engine. It's perfect for showcasing your products and driving targeted traffic to your website, and Shireen is here to guide you every step of the way. With Shireen's expertise, you'll learn how to create effective Pinterest strategies tailored to your business needs, from increasing website traffic to growing your email list and boosting sales. Don't miss out on the opportunity to transform your marketing strategy with Pinterest. Visit the link in today's show notes and start leveraging the power of Pinterest to grow your business. Pinning by Bad Gringa, helping women in agriculture and small business owners succeed with Pinterest. So tell us now, Luckett Vineyards, you have been in production for quite some time. You've been able to help grow the brand to where it is today. What are you producing off of the vineyard now?
So we've got a huge range of products. We do about 15,000 cases annually. We are producing white wine, rosé wine, red wine. We've got kind of our signature line that we do. We've got a reserve line with some higher end single varietal vinifera style wines and sparkling wines. But we've really grown into being an experiential business as well. So we're farmers first, we're wine producers and grape growers, but we've got this giant restaurant where we really focus on the customer experience there, and a lot of locally sourced products and foods that really complement our styles of wines. We do tours, corporate dinners, wedding dinners, private events. We held, this was our first winter hosting the Nova Scotia Winter Wine Festival this year. We're just about to get involved with Nova Scotia Music Week in the end of this fall. And so although wine is certainly, that's our number one, we've been able to grow the business into so much more than just that, which has been also a really exciting thing to be a part of.
Absolutely. And I just think of the community aspect of it and being able to not only support yourselves and your business, but I can only imagine that the agritourism is supporting your local economy in a big way.
Yeah, we've been talking about this number a lot lately, and Nova Scotia farm wineries contribute $250 million annually in economic impact, and the kind of community contributions that we have and the ties to the restaurants and tourism and all those different aspects. And especially that's so important in rural communities because, you hear a lot of people talk about they're coming to Nova Scotia. Well, they're going to Halifax, or they might be going to Cape Breton, which is really great, and that's a rural area, or they might be going to the South Shore. And those have always kind of been the two, it's like Peggy's Cove and Halifax. And now that we can be expanding and moving people around our province and really showing them that there's so much on offer here, and there's so much quality food and beverage products available that are really unique to Nova Scotia, that's huge impacts. And Wolfville, that's the little town that we're close to, and it's the sweetest little town. We've got the cutest little restaurants and shops, and it's something that I'm really proud to bring awareness and collaborate with these businesses to let's bring more people to our area and keep them here for longer.
So I want to talk about maybe some of the struggles that you have faced over the last number of years through this transition to being a major part of your family business, and what the challenges have been through growing in your position as the general manager and co-owner of Luckett Vineyards.
The list is endless of challenges. But I guess one of the biggest ones, probably the two biggest ones, was that coming into this leadership role, as I mentioned, there was a little bit of confusion around responsibilities and roles at the beginning, which I think created a little bit of tension within our business. So that was a challenge right off the bat that I think we've been able to mitigate. And especially my dad is more out of the business now. He started a new business in Portugal, which is really exciting. So I miss him lots and we need him absolutely in the business. But by him starting this new business, it's given me an opportunity to really establish myself and create better roles and responsibilities and boundaries between our two positions in the company. But the other thing, another big challenge that I had was trying to establish myself and trying to find my own leadership style and put myself out there to the community and just even not just inside our business, outside our business, because my dad was so well known and, he has been very successful in many different businesses and he's a prominent public figure. And so for the first couple of years, especially in the general manager position, it was always people, they didn't want to speak to Geena. They wanted to speak to Pete, even though I'm saying, no, I'm the one who can help you, so I had to kind of battle that out for a little bit. And it's nothing against my dad. This was more about he totally deserves all that recognition and his success and everything that he's earned. But it made things, I would say, a little bit more challenging for me in terms of being able to put myself out there and kind of establish myself as the leader of Luckett Vineyards now. And that's something I think there's probably a bit of a chip on my shoulder, maybe, that I probably think about it more than what other people maybe are, or maybe I make assumptions about things because I've put this pressure on myself to, I've got him on this pedestal and I'm just trying to earn that same respect and experience and success that he did. But that's changed a lot over the last, I would say, 2 years mostly, where I've been starting to really recognize my own achievements and how I've been able to grow the business in different ways than what he was able to, and just really accepting that I don't have to be him to be successful. That, I bring my own set of strengths and skills and perspectives that was missing from the company before, and trying to approach the thoughts as more of a collaborative process, as a comparative one, has been vital for me. But those are probably, there's always, agriculture and viticulture is a pretty male-dominated industry historically. So not only having my dad as that kind of person that I was trying to not replace, but work alongside of, now I'm also trying to infiltrate the old boys club as well, which brings on its own set of challenges. But there's a lot of incredible women identifying individuals in wine especially, who have really paved the way for myself and the next generation coming up. And it's a super collaborative group. So that's been really helpful. And then there's all of the other challenges like COVID and policy changes and all those things. But yeah, those three things are probably the most specific to me and my experience challenges that I can think of.
And honestly, I think those challenges can be said across agriculture, whether you're growing grapes or wheat or raising cattle or any of those things. Listening to that, my tweetable moment that I'm writing down here is, the collaborative versus comparative, I think, is so important for growth. And even to put another C in there, competitive, right? There's so many different areas that if we are looking at collaboration, I think that gets us further than the comparison or the competition. And specifically in agriculture, when I think of comparative, I think of the legacy of agriculture in itself. We've heard it all before that the greatest challenge in agriculture is, not growing in the sense of, well, that's how my dad did it and that's how his dad did it, so that's how I have to do it. When we think of growth, like that is just the absolute, that's where we stop growing in all senses in agriculture, is if we're not willing to look at doing things differently or challenging the way things have been doing it, even down to, the old boys club of agriculture. If we don't see women in these roles of ownership and general manager or on boards or out in the community, how are we supposed to know that there is a different way of doing it?
Yeah, perspective. You need those new ideas, that new thinking, the different perspective. And you're absolutely right, Caitlin. Like, there has to be an avenue to challenge everything. And I was really fortunate that my dad always has said that to me. He said, challenge everything. Challenge whatever somebody tells you. If they say no, challenge why it's a no. That it's absolutely imperative to grow and change. You've got to be able to feel confident enough to be able to challenge things. And that's where I think people struggle too, is just trying to gain that confidence and in yourself and feel good in a place where you can challenge people or policies or strategies or ways of thinking.
One thing that I want to bring up and chat with you about is something that during your presentations during the Young Farmer Summit, you talked about being one of the boundaries that you set place in growing this business and moving into the positions that you are, is as a sibling of this farm, you made it very clear that one of the stipulations of growing into this position was that you wanted to be a sole owner eventually. That was one of the boundaries, I guess, that you put up. Talk to us about that. That was something that the audience really stuck onto. They were like, how can you say that this is what you want? Only one sibling owner or whatever it is. It seemed to be kind of something that really stuck with our audiences across Canada. First of all, I think we can all say, why do we think this is? I think anybody who is on a farm with siblings or is a multi-generational farm, setting that kind of boundary is a big deal, because there's a lot of people who have never, I guess, had the gumption to say that this is how it's going to be for me. So take us through that process and what that looked like in the conversations with your dad, and how does that look today?
Yeah, it's definitely awkward to bring up. And I mean, I think my dad was really open and understanding to this. And I'm not saying that this would work for everyone. It works in my case because I am the only child involved in the business. I'm sure that I would have a different approach if my other siblings were working within the business. But for me, at this point, I've been working in the business and dedicating my life to it for over 10 years now, and have really dedicated myself and my future to this. And the thought of having to, it's already complicated enough trying to make these decisions, or big decisions for the company with my dad. The thought of doing that with other individuals who maybe wouldn't have the same type of knowledge because of the work history that I have within the business just doesn't fly with me. And, my dad gets it. He's always, in all of his businesses, he's always been the sole owner. So it's been a journey for him in our succession plan as well, because this is the first time really of him working in this partnership role. And I just was really open and honest. And I just said, look, if that is the plan, like if you want, this, it's so morbid to talk about, but him and I do talk about it openly. But I'm like, when you pass on, and if your intention is that you're going to leave the winery, equal split or whatever it might look like to all the children, I said, I just can't in good conscience say, okay, I'm willing to work towards this ownership role with you, because it just wouldn't work for me if, it came to, if that could be 30 years down the road and I've been running this business and I know it inside out and I've grown it to a certain point. And then all of a sudden I've got like a board of my siblings that I'm having to try and work with and work around when I've been the sole person essentially making these decisions and strategizing for the company and everything. So it was not an easy conversation, but it was one that my dad really understood. It was really important for him as he looked at the succession of this business, but also his will and everything, that he wants to be really open and honest with all of his children and doesn't want anything to be a surprise. And so my siblings all understand, and none of them have wanted to be a part of, they've been a part of the business in like more casual roles in the past, but none of them have indicated or joined the business to date or indicated that that's something that they want in the future. So luckily, I think everyone is very understanding of this, but also it's not just that I'm going to be handed the winery one day either. Part of my ownership accumulation over the years is that I'm earning these percentages of ownership. So it's not a simple transaction, but it's something that I am accumulating by inputting work and dedication towards the business. So that's something, it's hard to attach a number to that, something we probably should do sooner than later, but that's a component that all the siblings understand as well.
And it's so funny to me, and I'm even listening to this story and hearing it and just seeing the reaction that people have to it. I just think it's so interesting because, it's a conversation that farm families need to have, but they're not having, right? Like, we think of the multi-generations and how people have transitioned. And when we think of the reading of the will at the end of somebody's life, and that can completely change your children's life for better or for worse. And it's so important to be having these conversations now while people are healthy and of sound mind. But like you said, they're awkward conversations to have. And you don't want these conversations to start a fight or to divide families. And unfortunately, they do sometimes. But kudos to you for sharing that piece of your story with audiences across Canada on a stage and right here, right now, because I think these are important conversations to have, and they're going to be different for everyone and everyone's families. But to hear that these conversations are being had and having people open and willing to share them, I think furthers folks in agriculture along. So thank you for sharing those.
Anytime.
So what's next for Geena and Luckett Vineyards? What are you looking forward to this next upcoming season, events-wise? What's happening at the vineyard? Tell us everything.
We have some new products coming out this year, which are really excited. Some new formats. We are doing last year was our first year experimenting with a local group who puts on these markets. So we held a couple of markets last year, which we're really excited to do again this year. So we'll have a spring and a Christmas market, which was new to us and so cool. We had 30 different vendors inside, all really beautifully curated, locally made, like artisanal products, which was really special. I mean, you could go around and shop and drink your wine and then have snacks. It was a pretty luxurious, cool, locally focused event. We are ramping up to get open on May 3rd is our tentative opening date for the 2024 season. And I'm very hopeful that this is going to be our pre-pandemic year, that things are going to be kind of totally back to normal. Nova Scotia is going to be that traveling hotspot for a summer destination, and we're doing lots of cool events. Got another drag show planned. Which is super fun. We've got podcast recordings lined up, different concerts, special vintage wine dinners, and we're just going to hope that the weather's going to cooperate and all the tourism is going to come bouncing back, and it's going to be an awesome summer. And as far as I go, I am starting to grow the speaking side of things as a result of my great experience that I had with you, Caitlin, and the rest of the team, Stacy at FDC and Erica and the other speakers at the Young Farmers Summit for this winter. So I just recently bought my domain, geenaluckett.com, which I'm really excited about. So keep your eyes peeled for a website. Yeah. And that's it. Just rocking and rolling. My husband and I are doing a big renovation here for our home in Wolfville. And we've just wrapped up a renovation at our big wine producing warehouse. And we've got more vines going in the ground and just onwards and upwards. Keep moving.
Keep moving, keep growing, keep expanding. All of the good things. I heard the podcast recording thing, and all I can envision is the Rural Woman podcast on the road. And I think, like, what a perfect backdrop at a vineyard. We can invite all of the rural women there, and we can have a delicious glass of wine and share our stories. So I guess, TBD for that one.
Yep. Ready for you anytime.
Amazing. So good. Geena, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you this past winter and to be able to share your story with the folks here on the podcast. My last question for you is, what is the most rewarding part about being a rural woman for you?
The community, the collaboration in the community. I was so surprised coming into this industry, coming from the horse world. It was not overly collaborative, and I expected it to be that way with wine as well, because it's small. I thought we're all fighting for the same piece of the pie, and that's not the case. The community here is really amazing. I've got Ashley and Devin, who are the owners, sisters, who are owners of a winery down the road from us. Beatrice Stutz, who's another owner at another winery. Rachel and Corey Lightfoot, sisters, and they're the upcoming generation, another winery. There's all these really amazing women in our industry, and a lot of them are in the same position as I am, the kind of next generation coming up. And we're constantly picking up the phone, calling each other for advice or suggestions or just a general rant, whatever it might be. And that is really special, and I will never take it for granted.
Amazing. So good. Geena, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. For the folks who would like to connect with you, where can they find you online, and where can we find Luckett Vineyard wine?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. We've got Luckett Vineyards is on Instagram and Facebook, both at Luckett Vineyards. And as far as our wine is kind of challenging in Canada. So we sell our wine in the Atlantic provinces at the provincial liquor stores. We have a few stores in Alberta, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. And then we also can ship direct to consumer, unless you're in PEI. If you're in PEI, you can get it at the PEI liquor store. But everyone else, check out our website. We've got our list of wines there, and we ship you around, and we would love for you to try our wines.
Absolutely. And friends, if you're listening to this and you are in Canada and you have a wonderful wine store, ask them to bring in Luckett Vineyards like I have anywhere local to me. I have been praising you and saying, I want to see your wine on the shelf. So they took it down. So
Thank you. Thank you. It all helps.
It all helps for sure. Geena, thank you again so much for coming on the show today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Caitlin. And thanks for sharing the story of all these incredible women all around in our industry. It's really special.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Rural Woman Podcast. The Rural Woman Podcast is more than just a podcast. We are a community. A huge thank you to the Rural Woman Podcast team, audio editor Max Hofer, and admin support from Kim & Co. Online. A special thanks to our Patreon executive producers, Sarah Riedner from Happiness by the Acre and Carrie Munven from Blaystone Farms. To learn how you can become a Patreon executive producer or other ways to financially support the show, head on over to wildrosefarmer.com to learn more. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to the podcast to get the latest episodes directly on your playlist. And if you are loving the show, please be sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other platform that accepts ratings and reviews. You can connect with us on social media at The Rural Woman Podcast and with me at Wild Rose Farmer. One of the best ways you can support the show is by sharing it. Send this episode to a friend or share on your social media. Let's strengthen and amplify the voices of women in agriculture together. Until next time, my friend, keep sharing your story. Did you know that you can get this same great episode of the Rural Woman Podcast ad-free? I get it. Listening to ads during a podcast isn't always my favorite either. But in order to keep the lights and coffee pot on here at the Rural Woman Podcast Studios, they are necessary. I am so grateful to each and every one of my sponsors, but if you yourself would like to skip the ads while supporting the show, consider joining me over on Patreon. Patrons of the Rural Woman Podcast get ad-free episodes starting at Tier 5 on their podcast player of choice each week, plus some other great benefits. Find out more by heading to the link in today's show notes to learn how you can become a patron through Patreon.